I'm going to talk about a couple things today. Really, kind of three parts to this. Give you a quick little snapshot about UiPath. Not sure if many of you are familiar with us today, but give you a little snapshot on that. I think that'll also kind of lay the groundwork for our point of view on implementation and some of the success. We'll talk about some of the kind of how to get a little bit of how to get started, and then finally really what's the implementation methodology that we've seen that's successful and that we talk about. So. If I can get the, oops. So a little bit about UiPath. So really it's been an exciting year. I joined the company last August to build out our healthcare and life sciences business. When I joined last August, we were at 200 people. We're at almost 700 now. We're expected to be at 1,000 by August. So we have really experienced exponential and rapid growth. You can read the numbers there, 1,000% year-over-year growth, which is phenomenal. And quite frankly, it's not slowing down. It's been a tremendous ride, and I think it's just indicative of where robotic process automation is in the market. But I think there's some very specific things and advantages that we've had from a technology standpoint as well as from a strategy standpoint of where we're targeting and who our customers are that have really lent itself to this growth. So you can see some of the numbers below. The other thing that's been really exciting for us as an organization is a couple weeks ago we just recently got our Series B funding of over $150 million, putting us at a valuation of over $1 billion, which is just tremendous for a company like a company as young as us. And when you look at the investment partners, Excel Partners was part of the Series A. They're also part of the Series B. Capital G, which is Google's venture capital arm, as well as several others. It's just, I think that's a testament to what we've done as a company, but the technology is really what's driving it behind it. So it's been a really exciting year. Whoops, wrong way. So the other thing I just wanted to show real quick is, we are a global organization, right? And one of the things when I joined the company that was really important, and I was at Dell for 23 years and running our healthcare life science business. So being a global organization is really important, and that's what we are. The other thing that's really important, I think to our customers and what's been part of our massive growth is this has been designed as an enterprise class platform, right? Not necessarily a small, medium business platform that we're trying to scale up, right? This is an enterprise class platform, and when you look at our customers that are using this and really accelerating the growth, these are global organizations, and being a global organization for us is very important. Originally founded in Romania, moved our headquarters to New York City last year. We actually have an office in Houston now, opening one up in Seattle. So again, this goes back to the growth. And when we talk about the investment that we just recently got, that investment is going into the development of the technology and the support of the customers. So we're not investing necessarily a whole lot of people like me from a sales standpoint. We're investing in the things that really differentiate us in the market. Oops, I keep going the wrong way. So just real quick, what is RPA? And I think still I still hear a lot from customers, what is it? People hear robotic process and they think of a physical robot. At its core, it's a digital worker, right? We have a software technology that takes highly repetitive processes and it automates them, really. And our goal is to make work interesting for people, right? So take those highly repetitive processes off of the individuals and automate it. We want to automate anything that can be automated, so that way we get more value out of our employees, and quite frankly, people get better job satisfaction. The digital worker, it's a digital worker that sits with or adjacent to your human workforce. So when we talk about where to start, some of this may seem very basic, but what I've seen with organizations, even very large, complex, whether it's global biotech pharmas, the largest healthcare providers in the U.S., I think there's a number of things that people have taken for granted with the technology, because there's a lot of things that are very easy about it, but it still needs, but still following the traditional processes that you think about when you're deploying or implementing a new technology are really important, and those are a lot of the keys to success. So when we talk about what drives a successful implementation and where to start, first off, defining goals, and I think this is really important. It's not news to anybody, but what I'm seeing is a lot of customers, the single goal that they define for success, especially with robotic process automation, is headcount reduction. And I think that in time will actually become something. But when you think about the rest of the things in the if that's going to be the only measure, you're going to have a really hard time immediately, no matter how fast your time to value is, no matter how quick the ROI is, you're going to have a really hard time. So I think it really starts to become more about, how do I scale my operations, right? What is it that I can't do today because I have headcount restraints? How can I avoid, whether it's through seasonal spikes or just growth of my business, instead of hiring 1,000 people, maybe I only hire 100 because I can start to automate these processes. I think one of the things that's really exciting about the technology is, and we talk about taking those repetitive tasks off of people, this is going to advance the skill set of our workforce, right? How do we move people up the skill curve, right? So that way they're doing more valuable work. That's really important. And then, everything always comes back to the customer, whether it's an internal customer or an external customer, and how does it improve the customer experience? I'll give you just a quick example. What I'm talking with with one of the largest healthcare providers in the U.S. For those of you that don't know, when a nurse walks into a patient room, for example, they have to tap their badge and log into their system. It can take anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes, right? That's 30 seconds to 3 minutes that they're not talking to a patient, that they're not engaged with a patient. What if I have a robot that's assisting it? When she taps, it takes care of all the login credentialing, right? Brings up all the right applications so that nurse, she or he can get that 30 seconds to 3 minutes back with the patient. Think about how it would apply in a call center, right? Those are the additional types of values when you talk about what's the goal to automate that really start to make the difference beyond just, I need to cut heads. And then clearly gaining the competitive advantage. I think that's, we want these technologies to give our organizations a big advantage over everybody else. Processes to automate, and this gets, I think, outdated really quick, but we talk a lot about highly repetitive processes, and I need to update this, or we need to update this, but when we talk about things that are rule-based, right, these are all absolutes, right, things that are rule-based, highly repetitive, low exception rates. When you look at what's going on with cognitive and machine learning, right, and the technologies that are coming out there, really actually you want to start looking at processes that have exceptions, right? So that way these other technologies can start to learn, and we're not just picking the most simple ones. We got to go after the low-hanging fruit, but how do we start putting more complex processes into the fold? Obviously, high volumes, changing systems. How many legacy systems are still out there because you can't move off of it because of whether moving data or being able to validate it? This is the type of technology that can help you do that. So that way you become more nimble as an organization. Oops. What processes? I think what we're seeing across the market right now are these horizontal business functions, HR, supply chain, IT services, finance and accounting. These are the main components that quite frankly every marketplace, every vertical is looking at. Again, this is the low-hanging fruit, and what I like to say is, if you can solve a problem by putting a butt in a seat in front of a keyboard, that's a candidate for automation. And these types of tasks are perfect for that. So these are things that everybody should be looking at. You don't want to look at a process that's going to yield obviously a low ROI, and these are high volume. They're important. They require accuracy. They require audit capabilities, and these are all the things that RPA can bring to it. So what's our approach? So I think before we get into the approach, what kind of goes back to our core tenet of we want the workforce and the work that they do, we want it to be interesting, right? And the core tenet of that, and being able to take highly repetitive tasks off of the plate of people and put it in an automated solution like RPA, that's core to our tenets, right? The other key core to our approach is we want to democratize RPA. And what do I mean by that? We want to make it easily accessible, highly available. Training, for example, right? We want everybody to be trained on our technology, and we don't charge for it, even advanced. So when we talk about democratizing, we want to saturate the market with it because we know of all the things that it can do. And these are core to our implementation approach. So when we talk about the operating model, the four key components here, enabling the capability, supporting and enable the COE, the Center of Excellence, which Center of Excellence, I think everybody gets overused a little bit, but it's really important. And then support the institutionalized. Early on, what we do, and we believe that this is really important to a successful implementation, is we have to show lots of organizations, aren't sure about it, so we have to come in and do a proof of concept, right? Show that the technology works. Not necessarily a production-ready thing, but that we're hyper focused on being able to get our technology in front of people because quite frankly, the technology wins for us, and how quickly and how easily it can be deployed. So, that's where we talk about enabling the capability, enabling this and the proof of concept. Supporting the pilot and ramping, and I think this is important, and kind of where the training piece comes back in. The market is really challenged right now with finding enough resources that can actually do the development and implementation. This is across the board, whether it's the largest consulting and services firms or small boutique ones. This market's growing so fast, getting certified people is a challenge. Again, that's why we want to make it highly available, but we also understand that we have such an aggressive plan to enable our partner community, so that way they can deliver these solutions. That's a big piece of it, and then even reviewing processes to automate. The other thing that we share with all of our customers and with our partners, if they want, is quite frankly our framework, right? This and the detail behind all of these types of slides that we've seen through implementations globally that we've been a part of or supported through our partners. That's really important to us. And then ongoing support of the center of the COEs and the institution. We're a technology company, but like I said, we are doing so much investment on the back end from a support standpoint. Customer success teams, development teams from a code development. We want those resources to be available to our customers and to our partners to continue the long-term support. As I was reviewing this earlier, I've got to make a suggestion to marketing that we change this because I think it's too linear, and because if you look at a lot of these steps, a lot of them are actually happening in parallel, right? But again, I think the classic everybody talks about, things aren't, it's a journey, right? And RPA lots of times starts as a specific project today, right? Whether it's under somebody's desk or a specific department, but organizationally it does have to be that journey, There's so many steps to it in terms of what's the right business case. What's going back to what are those goals? What do we actually want to accomplish? How are we going to measure it? Am I going to do this internally, externally, or some type of hybrid? That's how we talk about the COE. So it's not necessarily linear, but I do think you have parallel paths, and a big part of the journey, to me, is the cultural piece and organization. Everybody always talks about you have to have executive sponsors and sign-offs, and you absolutely do. But what does it mean culturally for the organization? It can vary. There's not necessarily a right answer. I've got some customers. I've got one customer. Their strategy around RPA is they would rather have one robot doing something very simple across every single department in their organization, and just saturate RPA from that standpoint. And others take the approach of we're going to take a very specific, business function and a very specific process, and we're going to go attack that. Defining that cultural piece, though, organizationally, and making sure the support there is really important. I think that's a key piece to the journey. Oops. There we go. Implementation methodology. This is what we found works very well from a high level is, thinking of these as the towers, right? Around preparing the RPA. Again, this goes, what's the process? Who are the team members? How do you support it? Is this going to be an internal-driven solution, or is it going to be a partner piece? Got to define that. The solution design, again, what's the right process to automate? And is it going to give you the right return on investment? Is it going to be a process, and are you going to have the success of, quite frankly, you're going to get everybody else in the organization knocking on your door, I want to do RPA next. And I've seen it both ways, where the wrong processes have been picked up front or picked on up front, and it's not successful, and the broader organization doesn't want to implement it. And where it's successful, we're going to the COE, if it's been developed, they don't have enough bandwidth to ramp, quite frankly, because everybody sees the value and they want to do it. Obviously building and testing the solution. I think that there's a notion I've seen with customers too, that this can be really complex and take a really long time to do, right? And anything can be complex and take a long time if you want it to. One of the really nice things about RPA is you don't have to reinvent your entire process necessarily, right? So if you have a process that works, maybe it's not as efficient as you would like, you can still automate it and see immediate results, right, and benefits. So that way you can take the time over time if you need to re-engineer your process to do it, but you don't have to re-engineer everything before you can implement this and before you can see immediate value out of it. And then obviously the long-term care. I think the one thing, again, and I mentioned it, with minimum disruption, that's key with the process. You don't have to change something necessarily. Keeping that in place, because what do people get most scared of? This is my process. I don't want to lose it, right? Don't change it. Well, we're not changing it. We're going to make it more efficient for you through automation. Like I said, so a couple of the other key features. I think the cultural adoption is I think this is more important than people give credit. I mean, if you look at like the state of California, for example, there's actually consideration of, do we tax software robots as an employee? All right. Oh my, who would have ever thought about that? States like California and New York, where you have large labor organizations, this is a really touchy subject for them, because the immediate thought is this is going to take jobs away. My personal belief is it's not going to immediately reduce jobs. It's like squeezing the balloon. At some point, it's going to move them someplace else. But the immediate impact is it's probably going to let a lot more work get done for those people that are doing those jobs today, not necessarily displace them. But that's the cultural piece that has to be really you have to be really careful of. I think the other cultural piece, and I mentioned it earlier, is how is this going to enhance the skill set of our workers, right? When you start moving people up the curve because you're taking these redundant or these repetitive low-value tasks off of their plate, they're going to have to up their skills. It's an opportunity for organizations to really offer something different, right, for their employees, right? And when you think about competitive advantages in recruiting the best people, well, if you don't have to do these low-value functions, right, and there's much more development and more skill required for the roles, you're going to get a much higher level of individuals. So I think that's the cultural piece that's real important. The IT engagement, so I come more from an IT world, right, being at Dell for 23 years. Everything to me started with the CIO and a piece of hardware. IT is absolutely imperative, but this is the technology. These are the business solutions that truly start with the business, right? Because there's a piece with IT. Obviously, they have to be the collaborative partner, but the business function, whether it's finance or HR, it's their processes that they've got to be a part in designing it, where they're going to see the most value, and then obviously IT can execute on it. We see a lot of where I see things work is where they're working very collaboratively up front. Where I see things don't work is IT's not involved, and they typically then get something thrown on their plate, and they're like, oh, no, we can write a macro for that. No, that's not what this is. So that IT engagement is really important. And then deciding on the in-house RPA capability, right? This is where there's not necessarily a right or wrong model. It's what's best for your organization. Is it going to be, are you going to have a partner do it all, right? And own the center of excellence and all the deployment and the business engagement? Is it going to be a hybrid where you build out your own development force internally, or have the program and project managers that are engaging with the business? There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but you need to define it, right? And that's, again, from a capability standpoint, we want to make sure that we're enabling our customers and partners to be able to do that through training and through, quite frankly, having the a highly scalable, fast to market, and easy to use platform. And when I say easy to use, it doesn't mean your average business user is going to go develop an automation today. That's our vision. But for those that have the developer aptitude or skill set, it is much easier. And then some more. We talk about some of the other success factors. This stuff is pretty basic, right? I mean, it's not necessarily rocket science, and again, that's why I think it's important that doing some of the basic blocking and tackling that everybody is used to doing and applying it here is really important. One of the things that I think is really exciting from from a success standpoint, if you'll see the shared and reusable asset library, this is really important, especially for large organizations. You don't want to have to completely redo a process that maybe you've done in North America, redo it in APJ, starting from scratch if you don't have to. And I think, this is where, even having portions of these automations and these processes where you can start from, instead of starting at the goal line, to use a sports analogy, start at the 20-yard line or the 30-yard line. Those are really important to be able to reuse. The other piece that we're really focused on, much more broadly on this is, much like Apple has its App Store, we're going to have an automation library store, more or less, right? So organizations can build an automation, right? Here's a process that's automated within Oracle or Concur, pick your application that an organization has done. They can share it out there, right? Another organization can use it as a starting point, right? So this idea of reusable activities, while we've got a lot that are already built in from a Microsoft standpoint, at the end of the day, so many people do so many similar things and use so many similar platforms. Let's make that readily available through the marketplace and with oversight from us, right? So, we talked about and kind of in line. What are the inhibitors? And a lot of things like we talked about, lack of buy-in, cultural things, documentation. It's the typical inhibitors to any successful project are the same things here. And again, if you put the time and due diligence into addressing them up front, these are things that can very easily be overcome. And again, that's why, large scale transformations, it has to start at the top, and there has to be clear stakeholders, clear supporters, and clear goals and why we're doing it. But again, it's not, from a technology standpoint, the other piece that really makes this so appealing is it's application and platform agnostic, right? Because again, these are digital workers. So the same way that I can interact with an old mainframe system as I can with Salesforce.com, this thing can do the same exact thing. So you don't have those types of technical limitations necessarily, which is very different from a lot of other technology solutions out there. And then just to, very quickly, we talked about it a little bit, what's our approach? Come in and that POC, right? Give us the use case. Like I said, we scope proof of concepts out typically for 2 days. I haven't had one last more than a day where we're able to automate the process very quickly, within that day and show the organization this is how it works. This is what we were able to do in 6 hours on a process. And then, obviously, pilot, is just moving it to a much more, a much larger project, right, and something that's production ready, and then roll out. And we used to, I removed, we had some timelines under this. The timelines on this can vary, right? We can do a POC in a day. Depending on the pilot, could do a pilot in a week, could do a pilot in 6 weeks, right? A lot of that comes around the definition. The reality is what we see from our customers and our largest deployments is the time to value and the time and the return on investment is very quick. Whether it's 60 days, 60 to 90 days, very early on for large deployments. So. Whoops. And then just to finalize things, what are the keys? Again, it's not anything that everybody doesn't know. I think it's just really, continuing to follow through with the discipline around, rolling out new technologies and processes and adhering to it. Right? What are those goals? And again, it's not just what are the goals. Make sure they're the right goals and the goals that can drive success. Collaboration between stakeholders is absolutely key. We talked about it, whether it's IT in the business, leadership in the business, automating the right processes, and I'm a big believer in success builds success, and it will permeate the organization. So, with that, I appreciate everyone's time.
Round of applause for JJ.
Any questions? Thank you.
Any questions? We have one over here. Give me a second.
Yeah, so the question was, how do you get over with IT folks? Well, I can do the data transfer, I can do the macro, I can do this. Part of it is sit down and they can do a part of a process. Part of it, you got to show them how to automate the whole process because they can't do it. It's mouse click technology, right? It's watches what the person does. Their view of a process is very narrow. It's a piece of it. It's an activity within the process. So I think defining that is really key.
Over there on the right.
Yes.
So we're going to say the IT department definitely is not the answer. Where's the best place to locate the team that's doing the RPA? You co-locate them within a program management office, you put them in a shared service center, you put a cell in with each of the functional needs like HR logistics. What works best?
Yes, I don't think I think it's organizationally different, right? It depends. They all can work and they all cannot work, right? You have organizations like one of the largest healthcare providers in the country. Theirs is delivered through a shared services organization. That's what works for them. Another one, they have a central center of excellence, which manages kind of processes, but then it's actually deployed in a federated and managed in a federated way at the department and region levels. So it really varies. I think trying to shoehorn one specific way is not necessarily right, but what's going to work for the organization. Yes, sir. I'm not, so the question was RPA as it relates to with legacy systems or as part of the business process management. To be honest, I don't know. That's not necessarily the world I come from. I think the reality, the way that I would look at it is, as I mentioned earlier, you don't necessarily have to change your processes to leverage this, right? But I think to do business process improvements, right, and business process transformations, this has to be you have to have this as part of it. But you don't necessarily have to have business process transformation in place to be able to leverage it. I'm not sure if that answers the question. And we can follow up. I can get some better answers, but it's yeah. I mean, you look at the big service firms. This is part of their portfolio, right? And it's part of business process transformation and whatnot. But they're not mutually exclusive. So.
One more question.
So what we're seeing right now is, I think, having a separate development, because even though we talk about ease of use to develop, you still have to have a programming type aptitude and background, right? Our vision is getting to the point where the business owner, the process owner, will be able to build this, but the technology's not there yet. So I think you have to have the technical aptitude. So whether it sits in IT or you have a separate software development group, one of the things that we're starting to share with customers, I mentioned there's a challenge in the market in terms of ramping up resources, right? Because someone will go take a course online and say, oh, I'm an RPA developer. That's not real. So everybody's having some challenges getting these resources. One thing that we've done an incredible job of, and I can't believe how we do it. We bring on these technical resources all the time, and we go from bringing what we call an RPA developer, who is someone that's in front of customers, has a high technical aptitude. From hire to 3 weeks, they're doing complex pilots and proof of concepts with the technology right away, right? And the methodology in which we do that with them, number one, from a profiling standpoint, how we hire, and then our training, our onboarding process is something that we're starting to share with our customers and partners, so they can go get the resources.
Okay, thank you very
All right,
much, JJ.
thank you
Great
very
job.
much.
Round of applause.